Good morning. I've got a piece of blank card. I want to draw you something. As I draw, I want to ask you this simple question. Who was your favourite teacher in school? I mean, sort of question that people ask randomly, and sort of question I remember asking our children on a number of occasions. Who was your favourite teacher? Now, for me, I find it hard to answer that question because I had a number of really great teachers. But there's one teacher in particular that stays in my mind who taught me something really important. He taught us lots of things. I remember him actually give me an essay once. He was a biology teacher, and he gave me the essay title of the whole class, "The Life of the Body is in the Blood." And that was a great essay. But also he taught me a lot of other things, and one of those things was to draw this. From memory, I can still do it. It's our gullet. It's our digestive system. And I'm going to add one little thing here, because at the top is a little flap. I'm going to put a circle around it so you can see it. A little flap of muscle, called leaf-shaped muscle, called the epiglottis. And the epiglottis covers over the trachea when we're swallowing, so we don't swallow food into our windpipe. Instead it goes down the esophagus. Epiglottises. Mr. Nelson, well done. We've been thinking about 1 Corinthians and what was happening in Corinth, and I'm going to take you to chapter 12, and we've got epiglottises there. What's happening? Well, it was a very gifted church, a bit messed up church, as we know. There was a sense of a self-assuredness to it. It was a sense of disunity, because they were thinking of themselves and who was the most important, and there was competition going on. They were super apostles, and Paul is trying to tell them in between, as he talks about spiritual gifts between chapter 12 and chapter 14, these great chapters on spiritual gifts, is a chapter on love, the most excellent way of love. Love is patient, love is kind, and so on. But as he talks about the body in chapter 12, he's actually talking about that body is made up of many parts, and he says you've been given gifts for the common good, for the body. And each one of you being given gifts. It's not just certain people. Each one of you, he emphasizes that in verse 7 and verse 11. The Holy Spirit gives, and he determines each gift to each person. And then in verse 14, he's talking about the body, and he's talking about the foot and the hand and the eye and the ear, and how the eye can't say to the foot, I'm not a foot, I'm not important. And neither can the foot turn to the eye and say, I don't need you. The body, each part needs each other. Verse 22 says this: on the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weak are indispensable. And the parts we think are less honourable we treat with special honour, and the parts are unpresentable are treated with special modesty. While our presentable parts need no special treatment, but God has put the body together, giving greater honour to the parts that lacked it. So some parts have less honour. They seem to be less important. They seem to be less presentable. I love how the Message translation puts this, or paraphrase: would you prefer a good digestion or full-bodied hair? Paul, I think, is saying something very, very important for us here, and it's about epiglottises. Are you an epiglottis? Or, as Emma was praying, a lady in our church was praying the other day, Lord, maybe I'm just a ligament. Are you a ligament? These are less presentable. These are less seen. Are they less important? Of course not. The epiglottis plays an absolute vital part in our breathing and our digestive systems. Our ligament, I know from experience, our anterior cruciate ligament, which I snapped and have had replaced on a couple of occasions. Without that, it's not easy to walk. I was thinking more about this in the sense of sometimes some of us are looking for certain positions or certain titles even. Maybe the best title for anyone is I'm an epiglottis for God, or an anterior cruciate ligament. I mean, wouldn't that be great on your tombstone? Instead of I'm faithful servant of Jesus, that's a lovely title. I was a faithful epiglottis, or faithful anterior cruciate ligament. I think it's an important thing for us to remember that we've been given a gift from God, and God has given it for the common good. But with that, as we go and serve him, don't be worried of whether you're a hand or a foot or an eye. Just use the gifts God has given you And if you end up being an epiglottis or an anterior cruciate ligament, just remember the unpresentable parts, the ones that are hidden and unseen, are the ones that are treated by God in special honour.